Here for round 6 qualifying of Formula E, live from Misano, coming up in just a few moments' time. And with me to enjoy it all is 13-time F1 winner David Coulthard, former Formula 1 and FE driver Karun Chandok, and current Andretti Extreme E driver Katie Munnings. Thank you all for joining me for today's racing. It's going to be a great day ahead of us that we've got. What I wanted to start with is it's a new circuit for a lot of the drivers today. I mean, David, I'd start with you. What's that like when you kind of turn up to new circuit? Yes, they've been out there for kind of FP1, but there's a lot to get used to today.
Well, there is, but the good news is it's quite a different Formula E track in that it's a regular racetrack, mainly used for MotoGP. Amazingly, it's been around since the 60s, and I've never been here until this weekend. So not that well used for single-seater racing. Couple of corners which will challenge them where there's no room for error, but for the rest they're probably breathing a sigh of relief in comparison to Tokyo.
Are you expecting kind of a similar race to, because there's a lot of talk about Peloton style racing in today's race again today, but the last time I saw that was Sao Paulo, but you think it'll be a different type of race?
I think it's even more extreme, and maybe I think for the sort of non-cycling fans we should explain what Peloton style racing is, which is basically the car in front is cutting the hole in the air, and the car behind, it's much more efficient to be in the slipstream. You save something like 30% in terms of the drag factor by just being in the slipstream, and if you're further in the pack, that effect is even more. So nobody wants to lead this race, because if you're leading, you're using the most amount of energy and you're cutting that hole in the air, and therefore. But the key is to lead the last lap across the line there. So there's a real, it's going to be a chess match.
Yeah.
How do you pick your moment to get yourself into the front and lead across the line? And choosing that moment of when to attack is going to be absolutely pivotal.
Yeah, Katie, you've just had a little go in the Gem Beta car, haven't you? Right? And had a little look at the track. What have you seen out there?
Do you know what? It surprised me how smooth it is. Actually, doing a bit of research. Oh, that was quick. I think that's actually Karun going around.
Yeah. Oh, is that Karun?
Your helmet, yeah.
Oh,
DC, we all had a go this morning. I think actually there's a few rhythm changes that almost caught me out as well, because you've got this really fast-flowing open track, and then suddenly you've got the Formula E touch, where they've put in some walls, very narrow in some sections, down into turn 2 and 3. It actually tightens up quite a lot. So I think for the racing, you've got to keep a check on where you are on the track, because, yeah, there's some places you definitely don't want to go off.
Oh, well, we've got it all to look forward to and see ahead of us. Quali is on the way very soon. But well, as we've heard, the track is better known for MotoGP. But now it's time for Formula E to take centre stage. Let's hear what the drivers think about the weekend ahead.
Thoughts and feelings ahead of this race? Confident?
Yeah, definitely confident. We did a good job so far. This one is quite a special track, quite different to most of the other tracks, and yeah, first time for everyone being here. So hopefully we have a good base already, hitting a track for the first time, and then find a good setup in the practice sessions and be successful.
Yeah, relatively confident. I think we come off the back of a couple of good weekends, or 3 good weekends with 3 podiums. So relatively confident. It's quite a different challenge for us, but yeah, I think the team's working well and the car's performing well. So hopefully we can have a good one.
Racing in Misano in front of kind of like my home crowd, because I'm half Italian, half Swiss. So this is kind of like my only home race. And yeah, I used to race here back in 2018 with DTM. Ended up having some good results. So hopefully this will bring me luck.
Feeling really good. Very different kind of track compared to last time in Tokyo. But yeah, I think we've got a good idea how to adapt to these kind of tracks. Very fast, and yeah, in general, nice to be in Italy. Obviously, home race for Maserati. Good food and good weather, so looking forward.
Yeah, this race will be a typical bicycle race, so like Portland, Berlin or Sao Paulo. No one wants to lead initially, everyone wants to benefit from the slipstream, and then at one point the race will get fast and chaotic.
With their Saunders, our very own Saunders, that is, there with the thoughts of our drivers. But now it's time for the thoughts of our reporter in the pit lane today, Nikki Shields.
Thanks very much, JJ. Yeah, now there was some interesting breaking news earlier in the week reported by The Race. Nico Müller, the Abt Cupra driver, did a secret in-season test with factory team Porsche. Now, as you can imagine, this kind of puts Antonio Felix da Costa's future with the team in doubt. We did have a quick chat with him yesterday, and he confirmed that he is focused on the season ahead with Porsche. But we're going to have a bit of an exclusive interview now with team principal Florian Modlinger to find out a little bit more. Florian, thanks for talking to us. Could you first of all just explain to us, it is pretty unusual to do an in-season test with a driver from a different team, isn't it?
There you have to say and look in other race series and also what others did in the past. I don't know if it's common or unusual. Everybody can build his own opinion. That's my personal opinion.
You said sort of after, I think it was about race 3, that you're working intensively with Da Costa to get the results to come. He's obviously had that 4th and a 6th place finish here. How secure is his future with the team?
We have now in season 10 done 5 races. And this means it was a disappointing season start for him. 3 times 0 in a row. And I think it's for him the most disappointing season start. And for us as a team, it's also disappointing. But when you see Sao Paulo and Tokyo 2 times in the top 6, collecting valuable points for the team championship and for his driver championship. And on this we have to build now, that's clear. What we still need to build on and work hard with him is the qualifying performance. He did not make it into the duels one single time. And this is clearly now for here, Misano. Qualifying is coming up next, the target, to bring him into the duel stage of the qualifying.
And how is the relationship between you and Antonio Felix da Costa at the moment?
I think from my side, no difference than before. We have maximum push to bring him closer to Pascal, and especially in qualifying. And we worked really hard with him after Mexico and Diriyah. We put a lot of capacity and effort also from the engineering team to him. Mechanics back him full up, engineering team backs him full up. For me, it's fun to work with him. He's a nice guy. But we need to find the last 10th in the qualifying performance.
Brilliant. Florian Modlinger, thank you so much for talking to us. We do really appreciate it. And good luck for both your drivers in qualifying. Qualifying, of course, gets underway in just a few moments' time. Let's take a look at the groups. All 22 drivers are split into Group A and Group B. And what's really interesting is Antonio Felix da Costa and Pascal Wehrlein are both in Group A. And a reminder there, Pascal Wehrlein has got through to the duels 4 times out of 5 this season. Antonio Felix da Costa, 0. So this is going to be a huge session for Antonio Felix da Costa. He knows that all eyes are on him, and it's a huge responsibility when you are racing for a factory team like Porsche. So the pressure is very much on him to secure a future here at the team. It's going to be a very interesting session. JJ, back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Nikki. I mean, it was an interesting chat there between Nikki and Florian Modlinger, the team principal of Porsche, Karun. How did you see it? It felt a bit awkward to me.
Yeah, he didn't come across someone who's full of emotion.
No.
Very, very sort of, engineer speak, really, wasn't it? But he stated the facts. You know, the season started off disappointingly for Da Costa, but it's picked up. And I think, at the end of the day, I can't see how they're going to put Nico Müller in the car this year because there's a conflict. Nico Müller races for Peugeot in the World Endurance Championship. There's a conflict of brands. So that I can't see it happening this year. So in that case, you've got to support the drivers you've got at the moment because you're still in this championship. You still got to try and get as many points in the team championship this year. And, you know, you need to do everything possible not to undermine the 2 people in the cockpit and to try and support them.
Katie, how do you see it? I mean, you're currently driving as we speak right now. You know, somebody comes into kind of your team, does a bit of testing in your car. What's your natural instincts? How are you feeling as a driver?
I mean, we all know that motorsport is cutthroat, right? So I think, you know, from his side, it's probably not something that he hasn't kind of dealt with in the past at some level in his career, the competition side. I think it's actually really interesting, probably since the tension's been building and since the test, he's actually picked up his results. So sometimes that fire can ignite something in you as a driver. You know, he's obviously a really competitive guy. We all know him as a character. So it can go one of 2 ways. It can kind of bury you or it can pick up. And looking at his results, I think he's actually, he's handling it the right way.
Has this ever happened to you? I mean, I can't wait to hear this if it has.
No, I've been in a situation where a team has actually signed another driver and then told me about it when I was on holiday with the team principal, which was slightly weird. We were on a boat in the Maldives, and Ron Dennis said, we've signed Montoya. I can't get off the boat. I now have to spend a week with you. So it can be awkward, but I think the bottom line is this isn't a personality competition. This is a lap time competition. When relationships break down, it's like any other walk of life, really. You know, friends come and go, relationships come and go. It's very difficult to rebuild once there's a lack of trust or belief. And, you know, in terms of inspirational chats, I'm not sure the team principal there is going to sort of fire him up, other than to say, you must improve your performance.
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting to see just how Antonio Felix da Costa performs today. Right, we're getting close to the action. Qualifying is on the way shortly here on the Adriatic coast of Italy, a country that has always delivered exciting racing.
Formula E has some history in Italy. The first race in Rome was back in 2018. The races here have thrown up plenty of thrills and spills over the years.
Oh dear. Oh, it's chaos. That is the bus stop chicane and it's become a car park. Lopez was pushed into the wall.
After the restart, Jaguar's Mitch Evans was hunting down DS Techeetah driver Andre Lotterer for his and his team's maiden FE victory.
He's got to go for it. It's too far back. Surely there's contact and Lotterer, is he in the wall? Evans is through. Evans is in the lead of the race. Mitch Evans through the final corner to win the Rome E-Prix for Jaguar. Delight in the Jaguar racing pit, and they've now taken a victory finally.
A familiar face started at the front of the grid for round 13 of season 9.
Good start from Mitch Evans off pole position, not bad from Sam Bird away from the grid. Keep an eye out for Sasha Fenestraz in the Nissan.
A chaotic first lap saw Pascal Wehrlein sustain front wing damage, dropping the championship contender down the order. But the real drama would unfold on lap 9 when Sam Bird lost control on one of the fastest corners in Formula E.
Sam Bird has crashed out. Oh no, that's absolutely huge. Sebastian Buemi into the side of him. Red flag is immediately out. Edwin Mortaria, the other driver who's involved in that.
Thankfully, nobody was injured in what was one of the biggest accidents in Formula E history. When the race restarted, Jake Dennis was on the charge.
Jake Dennis, he made an absolutely brilliant start, now up into third place and chasing the tail of Mitch Evans. And through he goes on the Kiwi and the Jaguar. Look at this, Dennis on the inside of Fenestraz going for the race lead.
But the Avalanche Andretti had burned his energy too quickly, leaving him defenceless against the chasing pack.
Mitch Evans goes through into the race lead. Frustration then for Dennis.
I'm a sitting duck, mate.
Cassidy to the inside. Across the line comes Mitch Evans to win for Jaguar.
Who's the king of Rome? Jaguar! Yes!
Moving on to the next day, the championship was heating up. Evans, Cassidy and Dennis all had their eyes on the prize.
The Hankook Rome E-Prix is underway and it's a good start from Jake Dennis. Immediately crosses over to try and thwart the charge of Nick Cassidy. Look at Nick Cassidy now, all over the back here of Jake Dennis. Dennis going defensive on the run up in towards turn 7. Side by side they go. Cassidy on the outside. Oh, Mitch Evans go! And over! Disaster for Envision, disaster for Jaguar on lap 2. What a drive it has been from the Avalanche Andretti driver. Led every single lap and he comes across the line to win round 14. What a drive from Jake Dennis. Absolutely perfect.
So welcome back. We're about 5 minutes until quali starts here on the Adriatic coast of Italy in Misano. We are currently in the pit lane. I'm with David Coulthard, Karun Chandok and Katie Munnings. We had a bit of drama today in FP2, guys. Nick Cassidy having to kind of run off the track at one point. How did you see that, Karun? Because it was nearly quite a serious incident.
Yeah, I think it's an effect of running out of sync. There were other people on slow laps, as we're seeing up ahead here. He was on a fast lap, which clearly those other cars weren't made aware of. Sam Bird was the last of the McLarens. He actually moved over to the right, which he thought he'd squeezed Cassidy off the track, but I think he didn't realize Cassidy was already heading that way from earlier on. So it's it's an effect of running out of sync, but the reality is the cars on a slow lap need to be made aware that there is somebody on a fast lap. It's their responsibility. If you're going slowly, you need to get out of the way, because there will always be people going quick, and Nick was the innocent victim there.
I think you can see by Nick's reaction, he seems apologetic, you know, to an extent, where he's talking to James there. But we had some interesting radio as well from Sam Bird, which we can have a listen to here, because you know, he was blaming someone else essentially for what had happened, David.
Yeah, well, look, any driver that's running...
Let's have a listen. It's going to come up now, so we can hear what he says. Sorry.
No, lock the fronts into the chicane. Lock the fronts into the chicane. Our traffic management needs to be better, Laney. I've just shunted Cassidy off because I got no information that he was on a flyer. I was told everything's fine, everything's all good.
How about we talk about this after? Calm down. We're going to take the flag.
Well, look, Sam's taken it on himself, but I think, as Karun's already highlighted, there was the two Penske cars, one well offline, the other one a little bit more, let's say, online, which is why Nick was a bit wide as he came out of turn 13. And I think that has all led to the fact that he's then found himself on the grass by the time he gets to where Sam is. I just don't like to, and I get it, it's part of, you know, getting yourself ready for a lap, but I just never like to see cars driving slowly on the racing line. There's no place for it in any form of racing as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Well, we've got some great racing coming up, and we'll see how that plays out. But you two better get to commentary, because it's all about to start. Tom, over to you.
It is the 6th round of the ABB FIA Formula E World Championship, and we're in Misano for the very first time. We've been in Rome from season 4 to season 9, and now we move over to the Adriatic coast. It is great to have your company. We're very much looking forward to qualifying here, and here is how it is going to run down. We've got 22 drivers. They're split into 2 groups of 11, and out of those 2 groups of 11 drivers, 4 from each will progress forwards into the duels. We'll have quarterfinals, then into the semi-finals, and then we'll have the finals in the fight for pole position. There's a fantastic atmosphere here at the circuit in Misano. Fantastic weather as well. 12-minute session here for the drivers, and looking forward to seeing how this is going to go down. In terms of how things have worked out in free practice, it's been DS Penske who have been the team on form. Jean-Eric Vergne has led both free practice sessions, and interestingly, in FP2 this morning as well, no Porsches inside the top 10. The green flag flies then, we get Group A qualifying underway. We've got Pascal Wehrlein for Porsche, Oliver Rowland for Nissan, Maximilian Günther, race winner from Tokyo for Maserati, Jean-Eric Vergne for DS Penske, Robin Price for Envision, Antonio Felix da Costa for Porsche, then Stoffel van Dorn, Sacha Fennestrand, Sergio Sette Camara, Lucas de Grassi, and then Jehan de Ruvela. So 4 drivers can make it through from this one. DC, who do you reckon is on the money for this?
Well, I think the Penskes, as you've already said, have been pretty solid all the way from free practice, so definitely they're going through. So I think it's more of a question of who do you think's on the cusp, and to answer that, I'm going to hand over to the Oracle, Karun.
Well, I think one of the issues that Penske's had all through this generation of car, last year as well, is that they've struggled to get the brakes and tyres in the right window for the drivers to have the confidence to attack in qualifying. Now that on a street circuit is a much bigger challenge. You haven't got these long radius corners to lean on the tyre and generate this even amount of temperature you need. You haven't got the sort of long braking zones either, where you're able to just get the right balance in terms of the regen and the braking performance. They've got all of that here on a more conventional circuit, and I think that's why it's brought them into play. And listen, Vergne got pole position earlier this season in Diriyah, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That he got pole, but I think they should be in a good position here.
Yeah, exactly. Jeff was really happy about being fastest in the 2 free practice sessions. Great start for him and his weekend. You can see on board with the drivers here as well. Be keen to see how they're going to get on over the course of this session. But also, we talk about qualifying and getting into the duels. Given the race we're expecting, how critical is it going to be? I mean, not as important as Tokyo, for example.
But being on pole position is going to be as useful as a chocolate teapot, if I'm honest, because the only good thing of that is you get the points for pole, which is why, having heard that sentence, people at home might go, well, why are they bothering? The reality is you get 4 points for pole position. And also, if you're going to start in a pack, you want to be at least in the top 8, I think, to be safe, because there's a bit of a pinch point into turn 1, and then 2, 3, the wall is closed. So to get through that first part of the lap safely, you want to still be towards the front. But in terms of the overall race result, it's going to have very little bearing on the result, I think.
I actually think a chocolate teapot would save you dunking your biscuit, wouldn't it?
So,
point. You know, I think you could be onto something. But yeah, look, I think it's more a question of, are you at one with your car? Is the car performing on this racetrack? Are you managing the procedures for recovery and deployment? It's about that. And if you just happen to be near the front because you're confident, that has to be an advantage. But totally take on board that it's because of the nature of this style of race, where we expect a lot of, you know, slipstreaming and saving energy, then yeah, tactically, if you're strong at doing that in a race and can keep out of trouble, you're not going to be penalised too much by not being in the front row.
Speaking of being penalised, actually, as well, track limits have been a bit of a hot topic of discussion. We understand after free practice 1 yesterday, drivers were speaking with Scott Elkins, the race director, and they were having a few conversations. I understand that a few cameras have been placed now to sort of look at it, because, let's be fair, they were being flirtatious with the idea of track limits yesterday.
If that's your definition of flirting, then I'm going
I don't want to say
well
second
back.
base.
Yeah, that is way. Yeah, they were going way beyond anything I've ever seen, quite frankly. But look, in one hand, it's a quirk of this formula, and it saves the big debate about have you gone across the white line, because in other formulas sometimes it's so marginal. From in the cockpit, you wouldn't be able to know that you've gone marginally beyond the white line. But I think keeping at least a couple of wheels on the red and white, for me, would seem like a fair limit.
The slipstream is very powerful around here, and that's why we're seeing some of these drivers going, you know, quite close to the cars in front. The two teammates here from Nissan helping each other out a little bit as well. I wonder if they swap around later. Fenestras in the tow. Now, for those of you who haven't seen a Formula E qualifying before, you might be wondering, you know, are they going to be struggling in terms of the wake and the dirty air? That isn't so much of an issue in Formula E. So you can actually get a bigger benefit from the slipstream than the time loss through the corners. This was Fenestras at the final corner, turn 14.
Making his way through. Okay, is he going to run it a little bit wide through there onto the curb? All okay. We saw a little bit of a snap of oversteer just as he comes back on, but we saw a few drivers there getting it properly sideways in free practice this morning. But yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because, like you say, you know, teams that have got two cars in this, you know, DS Penske and the two Nissans as well, you know, there is that good opportunity for them to be able to work together.
Yeah, I think you know, the circuit as well. You look at this one here, turns 6 and 7. You know, it's all about getting stability on the brakes, and then just get the car settled, get the nose into that second part of the apex, and fire off. But this, I think, this next one is really tricky, because it's a bit of a gamble in terms of how brave you are on the brakes, and you know, it's yeah, as I say, it's a bit of, I mean, I know you like a card game, so it's it is a bit of a gamble in terms of trying to attack that chicane and the curb and trying to get away with it.
Certainly is. Freins goes over the line, fastest then, 1:18.360. Good lap time there for Robin Freins with 5 minutes in the session. What we sort of see generally in qualifying sessions in Formula E, generally 2 phases. Drivers will go out, they'll do their first run, they'll come back into the pits, they might change over to the second set of tyres that they've got, then go back out for one final blast. At the moment, John-Eric Verne still leads the way. Stoffel Van Dorn's just come over the timeline, set a personal best, but sits third quickest. Gunther also improves. As you can see, the top 4 drivers are the ones that are going through into the duels. Expect those times to come down in those positions to be changing quite dramatically, I would imagine, before the end of this session. Let's have a look here at Antonio Felix da Costa. We spoke about him earlier on, and, well, there were track limits, and then there's the grass.
Doesn't look like that cost him too much time, though, but bringing a little bit of dust as he goes beyond the blue and white curb.
It's the Katie Manning school driving that, isn't it?
Exactly. He's yeah, wanting to, well, if he's not going to be the quickest, then he wants to be the most extreme.
He's got 3 tenths to find, isn't he, compared to his teammate at the moment. Reasonably big gaps, actually, between Verne and Van Dorn as well, nearly half a second, which is
so turn 1 braking, and then also turn 7 was not great. Turn 7 not great.
So race engineer there to Antonio Felix da Costa, saying needs to work on braking in turn 1 and also work on turn 7. That's the run onto the back straight. And if you're losing time there, you're carrying that all the way down.
Yeah, that's a very long right-hander. I would have thought there was more lap time on the entry phase of that turn than on the acceleration phase, because the difficulty, in my vast experience of having done 2 laps in the Formula E era, is that sort of entry to apex rather than with plenty of space on throttle.
And we're seeing drivers actually using different lines on that entry phase, aren't we? We're seeing some going tighter, trying to brake in a straight line. Other drivers taking a sort of U-shaped, wider radius and trailing the brake. So there's room for creativity actually around the circuit, I think, in terms of line.
I went more for a W shape than a U shape.
We saw.
Oh, thank you.
How was it driving a Gen 3 car there, by the way? Was it good fun?
Yeah, it's great. I now know what it feels like to be in the cockpit. Incredibly smooth, obviously a lot of acceleration initially. A lot more weight in the steering than I was expecting, which I guess is the whole setup for the regen on the front axle. And a distinct lack of downforce.
Good to know. So, looking here at Sacha Fenestraz making his way down into the left-hander. All running okay so far. This is what we expected to see as well, isn't it, with the 2 phases. A lot of drivers now in the pits. They'll go up for one final flyer at the end of this session. Still John-Eric Verne's fastest from Verline, Günther and Robin Freitz. Oh, looks okay here for Fenestraz, who makes his way out of turn 7. Breaking into turn 8. Oliver Rowland as well.
Oh. He really attacked that inside curve there, Roland, didn't he? Really tried to take a big bite of it and got away with it. You know, it snapped sideways, but we don't often see drivers trying to use those bigger curves. It is a type of curve that's seen at a lot of the Formula E street circuits. They call it the sort of Formula E double curve. There's a lower bit, which is painted blue and white, and then there's higher sausage curve. But we very rarely see a driver attack it in the way Roland did there.
Yeah, we saw it actually in Tokyo a couple of weeks ago. We had one of those, and especially through one of the very, very tight chicanes, drivers were really getting incredibly close, almost millimetres away from clipping the wall. Roland, by the way, has made the duel on 2 occasions in 2024. On both of those occasions, he's ended up on pole position back in Diriyah and last time out on home soil in Tokyo. By the way, just as a side note, good to see Sergio Sette Camara back out on track. He's just ahead of this man, Nico Müller, at the moment. That car came to a stop in FP2. Battery-related problem, but he's managed to get it sorted and crucially get back out into this session. ERT, by the way, not expecting a particularly brilliant weekend in terms of the race. The battery and the car not as efficient as they would like.
But Dan Ticktimer looked good, wasn't he? He's always dressed to impress.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. Virtual race engineer, you can see here, by the way. Tyres reaching their peak on the 2nd push lap. So that'll be. I wonder, who's going to get time for 2 push laps in this session. They might have to go out and push beyond the limits a little bit on their sort of.
Yeah, well, they're running out of time now, so we've got to get a move on.
Well, they would have all done a run to start with, then come in around the halfway point, change tyres. So this will traditionally, you'll see most of these drivers now on their 2nd set of tyres. That's where they're doing a bit of weaving. They're all about to start their final laps. We got Verline is the first of the cars in the queue, and he is going to be the first of the drivers. So this is the big lap here, Tom, to see whether you get in the deals or not.
Yeah, let's see what happens here for Pascal Verline. We follow him across the timing line, then down in towards turn 1. Looks okay through there, a couple of bites of the cherry, but all otherwise fine. This is where it then begins to tighten up, probably one of the tightest parts of the lap as you go through turns 2, turn 3, then on the exit of turn 4.
Yeah, he gave it plenty of space for the wall in the middle of that chicane there, which, given the extensive experience they have of street circuit driving, I expected to see them sort of straight lining that a little bit more. Not that I think it's a big loss of time, but he's certainly very respectful.
10th of a second down in that first sector at the moment here for Verline. Looking okay so far. Exit out of 7. We know how crucial that is. We ride on board here with him. You can see him there right over onto the apron on the outside of it. And it's the chicane of turn 8 and 9 where you've got to really thread the eye of a needle up to 240 kilometres now. You see the brakes and the regen going through. Missing the curve on the inside, but so close to the wall there on that left-hander.
His teammate Da Costa is the other end of the train, shall we say. So Verline is going to set the first benchmark. Da Costa, the last across the line. I noticed He got past, by the way, with only about 3 seconds to spare, so they were playing on the edge there of him not getting that final lap in.
Yeah, super close. Checker flag is now out in this session, through into the final corner here for Verline. It's not really anything to write home about. At the moment, he's made it through in second place. Nice exit out of that final corner. He comes across the line, does improve in that final sector. It makes sense the fastest final sector time overall, as a matter of fact, to go within 0.2 of a second of Jean-Eric Vergne. Anybody else on the move? Vergne was quick in the first sector. Look at that for Ollie Rowland. Goodness me, sideways out of the final turn, comes across the line. The lap is scrapped, and he goes over it in third fastest. Anybody else improving? Fenestraz doesn't make it through in the second of the Nissan. Anybody else going to be able to do it? Stoffel Vandoorne in the second of the DS Penske's is not going to make it. Robin Freins also misses out. De Grassi improves up into 7th quickest, but doesn't make it into the duels. And unless DaCosta's having a worldie, which he's setting personal best sector times at the moment, they're looking okay, but it's not going to be enough for him. He goes over 7th quickest and does not make it into the duels. So it is going to be Jean-Eric Vergne, Pascal Verline, Oliver Rowland and Maximilian Günther that make it through. 4 different manufacturers and 4 different powertrains from Group A progressing forwards into the duels there, DC.
Yep, that was a nice little battle right at the end there. And we're going to see Oliver Rowland locking up on the way in, so a bit wider on the apex than we saw from Verline, and then realizing that, lights it up, and then a big, well, fast and furious drifting there.
Yeah, right across the grass there for Oliver Rowland. Wide on the entry, big snap of oversteer in the middle of the corner, over the curb. Did well to save it there, Corinne.
Yeah, good car control, is he? But he, it started with missing the apex, didn't it? He was wide at the apex, didn't get that inside curve, which we see everyone else taking a big bite. But what was interesting for me is, on that last lap, Vergne improved by only about 8 thousandths, but he still improved. And then the next 3 cars didn't improve on their final laps. And actually, quite a few drivers didn't improve on that final lap.
Do you think that's a bit of an omen possibly for Group B as we go into it? Maybe the first runs are the ones we need to look at.
Well, the track temperature is going up, which means over time, normally the grip level goes away, but Vergne underlining the early pace. Vandoorne there, not there. He's going to start, what, 17th at best.
Yeah, disappointing there for Stoffel Vandoorne. So Vergne, Verline, Rowland, Günther make it through. We say goodbye to Robin Freins, Sacha Fenestraz, Antonio Felix da Costa, as well as Lucas de Grassi, Vandoorne, Daruvala, and then Sergio Sette Camara. Da Costa doesn't make it through, and given the weekend where he's under a bit of pressure...
Where did you have traffic in the last sector?
I mean, it wasn't... I had Sette locking up in T7 and 8, and 8 he went straight. So it's a bit disturbing, and then yeah, the last sector, the Maserati slowed down and boxed.
Yeah, so not an ideal final run there for Antonio Felix da Costa. He'll be disappointed with that, not making through. Likewise, Porsche will be, as we said, weekend will under a fair bit of pressure. Let's have a look at Sette Camara, locking up into turn 8. And da Costa was right behind him on the road there. Do you think possibly a bit of target fixation, maybe?
Look, I think that when things are not going your way, you'll find any reason. But frankly, when you're that gap to the car in front, you still spot your braking as you would normally, and you've got to just keep focused on your own lap. That would have cost him anything.
Yeah, unfortunate there for da Costa to not make it through. Great to see the Italian fans here in Misano as well. They very much looking forward to a fantastic E-Prix this afternoon. Double header, of course, here in Italy this weekend. It's exciting racing to come. Well, thank you if you've just come back after the break. Looking forward to Group B qualifying to come along the way now. Nick Cassidy, who crashed in free practice 2, is going to be out in this one. Likewise, Jake Dennis, Mitch Evans, Sam Bird, Buemi, Jake Hughes, Norman Nato, Nico Muller, Edo Mortara. Home race for him, the Swiss-Italian in the Mahindra, as well as Nick de Vries and then Dan Ticktum. So this is going to be really interesting, actually, because you've got, I'm having a look at the list there, you've got about 4 or 5 drivers, I think, who are in with a fairly good chance of making it through into the duels. And crucially, for Nick Cassidy, the team managed to get that car fixed in a very short turnaround after his FP2 off.
I don't actually think there was that much damage. I think it looked more dramatic, but actually by the time he hit the wall there and did the front wing, a lot of the energy and speed had been dissipated. So actually, I think it was not a massive shunt in the end.
More gravel rash than anything else, but they can just reapply the transfers, stick a new nose on it, and off he goes.
Yeah, seemed to be all okay. Just went down and had a quick chat with the team before the start of qualifying, and they said, yeah, we'll get it out for qualifying, it should be all good. Don't forget about the Formula E predictor, by the way, bottom left-hand corner of your screen. Scan that QR code and tell us who you think in the duels is going to progress forwards from the quarters and then into the semi-finals. That'll be coming along the way very shortly after the conclusion of Group B qualifying. And speaking of Group B, of course, we've just had Group A out on track. What do you think that's going to be for the drivers? Do you think they'll have a sort of a healthier reference point now they've just seen what the track sort of looks like for them?
Yeah, I think it helps. You know, it helps to know what the track conditions are like comparison to the free practice session this morning. And you've also got a target, haven't you? They'd all look at Vern's lap time and know what they're chasing to be position uno in the session.
So down in towards the chicane of turns 8 and 9 we go. Drivers there just putting some crucial heat into the tyres and the brakes. Jake Dennis struggling with setup. I was down chatting with Andretti earlier.
Focus on getting those fronts in. Reminder from Porsche was their second push.
And it's the feeling under braking where he's been struggling at the moment.
But also that was interesting, isn't it? It shows a collaborative effort between this Andretti pit garage and Porsche next door, who are their technical partners. Last year they were battling each other for the championship, and there wasn't much love lost there. But they now recognise they need to work together to beat the likes of Jaguar and Penske. So they've got information from Porsche saying, look, this is when the tyres came in, and etc., which is helpful.
Yeah, of course, there's not only the Manufacturers' Championship, there's the Teams' Championship this year as well, and be interested to see how that all plays out as the season progresses. So first flying laps now beginning, looking here at Sebastian Buemi in the Envision, Jaguar-powered machine. Of course, holds the all-time pole sitter record in Formula E, some 16 pole positions to his name. It's been a fairly long time since he was last on the top step of the podium.
You can see him just working away the entry to turn 6 into 7. 6 is really just a kink, but what it does is put a bit of lateral load on the car as they're having to brake to then find their position to rotate in 7. Nice little onboard there of how tight that chicane is.
So we know an 18.0 was Vern's time in that first part of qualifying. Buemi, a little bit of oversteer as he came out of there, and then he's gone deep a little bit at that corner. It was something he mentioned to me yesterday was actually they seem to run the ride height of this Envision car lower, I think, than some others. And that means you'll see him. He's not really going as wide as other people over the curves because he finds it's bottoming out if he gets too wide on that curve, whereas maybe other cars are running slightly higher. Look at the Andretti, way off the track there. They may be running the car slightly higher that allows them to go there.
So Norman Nato there was the first of the Andretti coming across the line. Jake Dennis also going as well. Mitch Evans puts in his first banker lap time, likewise Jake Hughes. So let's have a look at this. We've got, what, 2 Andrettis in this one, 2 Jaguars, 2 McLarens. And again, you wonder if they're going to be working together to try and use that slipstream here in this qualifying session to their advantage.
Well, nobody's doing it yet. They've all given each other plenty of breathing room out on track. As we see the Mahindra coming across the line. That is Nick de Vries. So that's a strong lap from Jake Hughes. Straight away down into the low 1:18. He looked good in free practice as well, didn't he? He's been pretty hooked up around here this weekend.
Yeah, he's raced and won here before as well, back in Formula Renault. Good sort of 9 years ago, he was saying in rookie free practice when he joined us for commentary yesterday. Let's have a look at Jake Dennis through the final corner. Is he going to get a bit of a snap of oversteer? Just running very wide off the curb.
Yeah. So far, that looks as if no issue with grounding, and it doesn't seem there's any issue in getting the first lap time.
Okay, that was a good lap. We're currently P1. Purple all sectors.
Yeah, Jake Hughes would like the checkered flag to fall now if it was down to him, I think, wouldn't he?
Doesn't leave you much room for improvement if you're quickest everywhere.
Well, good stuff there for Jake Hughes in the McLaren. On the other side of the coin, Sam Bird down there in 11th fastest, but hasn't really got a banker lap time in. He was one of the drivers involved in that incident with Nick Cassidy in free practice too, and was slow on the racing line, and Cassidy was, well, as you could tell from the team radio that we had earlier on, less than impressed. As we look at Eder Mortara coming back into the garage, missed FP1 yesterday owing to a technical problem in the Mahindra. Got out for free practice 2 this morning after a battery change, and is somewhat on the back foot given his lack of running, but he has been the shining star for Mahindra. Tokyo finished 6th on the road after starting on the front row of the grid and would have been on for points if he wasn't disqualified for energy overuse. So disappointing end to their weekend, but yeah, good pace for them nonetheless.
Yeah, he was really the star of qualifying, wasn't he? In Tokyo, but I think it's going to be tough for them here. They, you know, this is a racetrack which is much wider. Look at that on the brakes. I was thinking he was quite committed on the brakes, but too deep.
Yeah, that would have cost them quite a bit of time.
Norman Nato, the Andretti car there. So what is it? So this is where it gets a bit tricky for the driver, because Nato's pushing on, but at this stage, you know, the time's gone, the lap time's gone. You might as well box, get the next set of tyres on. Maybe that's what he's going to do now. Yeah, he is. Yeah, you might as well give yourself more time in the pits, get the next set of tyres on, and then have another go at it.
It's interesting that a lot of drivers are sort of pitting a couple of minutes earlier than we saw in the Group A session a few minutes ago. So I wonder if they're just giving themselves that little bit more headroom to get a couple of flying laps in to get the tyres into that right window.
I think the track temp is also going up. And we've seen this in the past with Formula E on traditional circuits. When the track temperature is going up, you sometimes find that the lap time comes earlier on, just to, you know, before it ramps up too much.
Ian James there, just looking inside the McLaren garage, and inside, well, a fair few of them now as we just scroll through, wait for the drivers to come out. There's Jay Penske, which I'm fairly sure those sunglasses are permanently affixed to his face. I've never seen him without them on.
Maybe reading glasses.
Maybe so, yeah.
Just with a little bit of a tint.
A bit Top Gun, aren't they?
Yeah, very spectacular. And as was taking the car absolutely to the limit of the blue painted concrete there.
Yeah, inside the garage for Andretti. Now drivers going out for their second and final runs in this session.
A couple of cars are under investigation, I guess, because of tyre pressures. We're all good.
Jake Dennis is under investigation there, so yeah. So to explain that, in terms of tyre pressure, there's a minimum tyre pressure which the teams all have to stick to, and if you're found to be below that at any point, then you can be disqualified from qualifying. So that could be, normally it's a slam dunk as well. There's no sort of room for arguing that.
Well, we'll see what happens with this. I'm sure it'll all come out in the wash. Let's have a look here at Nick Cassidy. This is over the curb, and, well, very much on the inside of the curb. Gets a snap of oversteer there as well. He just sort of unsettled the car going through that right-hander. That's going down into, where's that, turn 12, isn't it?
Is that 7?
No, you're right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, absolutely.
Inexperienced as I am on this track.
You've done 2 more laps in the Formula E car than I have. Just saw Phil Ingram in there as well. He had his head in his hands after Cassidy ended up banging it into the barrier early on. Now all focus on qualifying with just over 3 minutes remaining of this session. You can see a little bit of instability there on the rear of Buemi's car as he just flicks it into the right.
Yeah, slightly wide of that apex again, but he's on what would be his first push lap on the second set of tyres, if you see what I mean. So he will then get this lap, he'll do 1 cool lap to just bring the temperatures and the pressures back down again, and then have another go before the line. So we'll see. He's outside of the duels at the moment. Doesn't need a lot to get ahead of Evans. He's only 2,000ths behind. Little instability on the rear end as he turned into 12, and now he gets through the left-hander of 13. Always a bit of understeer here, we're seeing for most people. And now, look, again, Buemi not really attacking those curbs as much as other people, is he?
Yeah, we see drivers really using the curb on the outside of that corner and then just absolutely throwing it in. Buemi does improve in time, goes up to 4th quickest, knocks out Evans for the time being. Cassidy building himself up.
10th improvement there, so that was just marginal. So
yeah, he's just in his teammate not making it through into the duels in Group A as well. Robin Fry's just missing out. What about Jake Hughes? Fastest overall in the second sector. He's going to be on for a marked improvement here as he comes across the timing line and goes 6 into the second faster. And Bird also puts in a good lap time to get both McLarens in at this stage.
Yeah, but he's knocked back out again straight away as Evans has gone through. I mean, but Bird 7/10 behind Jake Hughes. Hughes is really, really strong around the circuit. Evans a 1/4 of a second behind. We're not used to seeing such big gaps in qualifying. They're normally, you know, we're seeing normally the top 4 within a 10th sometimes. but JQ is a real standout performance so far.
I can only imagine on this track, the big areas of potential difference from teammates could be that sort of transition 1 into 2, 6 into 7, and down into 12. They're the long sort of braking combined corners where straight line.
I hit the wall.
Okay. Dennis is saying the tricky bits.
No, rear left.
That's doubly disappointing for Jake Dennis. One, if he slipped the wall, he's not going to get a representative lap time in. And two, he hasn't actually set a representative lap time in this session at the moment. It's Andretti's 10th and 11th in this session into 8 and 9.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a
Is
kiss,
that enough
though.
to pit? Yeah, and that's the tyre wall that he's just clipped the curb too much in the inside. So how much time is he going to?
Oh,
he's going to be out.
He's got one.
Yeah.
I'd have a go.
Yeah.
I mean, the car's still going around. Why would you take a chance? Look at this little gaggle of cars here. They're all trying to get track position. There's 40 seconds. They've got time here. And hopefully the engineers are on the radio to the drivers saying, quick, space yourselves out, because you have got time to give, give everybody room to have a lap. 25 seconds still. Roger Griffiths, the team principal at Andretti. Dennis is starting the lap, so he hasn't hit it, which is good.
Yeah, he needs to. He's got absolutely no choice in this one, really, to try and get himself out of the group stage of qualifying and into the duels. He's never made it through into the duels in the Group B that he's been in so far this season. Every time he's been in Group A, he's got through into the duels, but Group B seems to be his Achilles heel. Into the left-hander he goes. Let's have a look here at Nick Cassidy as well. Newly rebuilt Jaguar, currently through in 3rd fastest, but some 0.6 of a second away from Jake Hughes. Checkered flag is now out. Hughes is on a flyer. Evans is on a bit of a quick one here too. So drivers are now beginning to find pace at the end of this session.
Hughes has found another 2/10 in the first sector. Sam Bird has done a very good first sector now as well. So the times are coming. Lots of personal bests all around the timing screens.
Someone's going to be disappointed here, aren't they? And it's anybody's guess as to who it is going to be. At the moment, Nico Muller is the driver on the bubble. Cassidy then, a little bit of a slide coming through into the final sector. Buemi puts in a good lap time, goes up 3rd quickest then in the Envision. His teammate was knocked out just a few minutes ago in Group A, but not so for Buemi as it stands for now. What about Cassidy on the bubble? Is he going to improve in time as he comes to the line? He does go 3rd quickest, 0.4 of a second away from Jake Hughes' best lap time then. Evans, his teammate, is currently through. Nato improves, but it's only 7th fastest. It's not into the duels. And Dennis, the reigning world champion, only 10th quickest as well. It's disaster for Dennis and for Andretti as it stands in the group stages at the moment. Is anybody else going to be improving in their lap time to get themselves into the duels? Oh, Muller just pops it in and Bird's up into 3rd quickest there as well. So at the moment it's both McLarens through and Muller in the Abt Cupra as well.
That's a surprise.
Yeah.
Muller,
Muller's been really
strong
good
lap there.
in
Very
qualifying.
strong. Yeah.
He's been very good in qualifying so far this year. And you can see what it means to Thomas Biermeier here, team principal for the Abt Cupra team. They've just newly announced a partnership with Lola and Yamaha for season 11. And a sigh of relief there for Ian James, and a sigh of disappointment, unfortunately, on the other side for James Barkley, as Nick Cassidy is knocked out of the duels and of Group B.
Yeah, that section there is absolutely tight, but Hughes, I think these fastest 3 times were quick enough to have him on the lead of that group.
Yeah, very strong, hasn't it? Super strong performances.
Well, let's see whether that translates into a strong performance in the duels. He took a couple of pole positions in his rookie season last year, and there's every evidence to suggest that he is going to be strong going into the head-to-heads. Let's have a look here at Dan Ticktum. He's going down in towards turn 12. Whoa! Big slip and a slide.
Yeah, just too deep on the entry phase, gets off the race line, and then once committed to it, and then, yeah, really whacking. Well, you can see the actual mistake started on the exit of 11 when he's gone over the sleeping policeman. I think you've been referring to them as bananas, or someone has, have they not?
I called them the Richmonds, the sausage curls.
Oh yeah, that's true. Actually, yeah. Anyway, over the out of limits yellow curbing, and then carried it all the way into turn 12.
Okay, checker flag. And slow in lap. I lost slow in lap.
I hit the grass exit turn 9.
Yeah, copy. I'll let you know the results when all cars are finished.
It's obviously a slightly delayed radio message there for Jake Hughes as he's now back into the pit lane and getting the car all weighed to make sure it all complies with the regulations. But he is fastest in Group B qualifying as we head in towards the duels. Let's have a look at confirmation then of the results from that session. It is the two McLarens that make it through. Jake Hughes leads the way from Mitch Evans in second place, then Sam Bird ahead of Nico Müller. Those four drivers get into the duels. We lose Nick Cassidy, we lose Sebastian Buemi, Norman Nato, Eda Mortara, Dan Ticktum out of qualifying and probably off to the chiropractor after going over those sausage curbs. Jake Dennis, though, the big name there, reigning world champion, out and down in 10th place. Nick de Vries completing the order there as well. Drama in Group B ahead of the duels. Well, we now shift our attention over to those duels then. The quarterfinals are going to be going out in a few moments' time, so we'll have 4 sets of those, then into the semi-finals, 2 sets of those, and then of course into the finals head-to-head with the drivers. Don't forget about the Formula E Predictor app as well. Scan the QR code in the top left-hand corner of your screen to tell us who you think is going to be progressing forwards from those duels. There is Nick Cassidy, I think, putting a bit of a brave face on things, unfortunately, and likewise just to his left as well, Jake Dennis, who will be bitterly disappointed. 2 big names knocked out here in Misano, and we'll see what they're going to be able to do come the race here this afternoon. That's Norman Nato just to Nick Cassidy's left there, as a matter of fact. As we see Sam Bird also coming down pit lane. Let's have another look here. This is the Apt Cupra of Nico Müller, riding the curbs through into the final corner. That was where Sam Bird picked up a bit of grass as well, so he ran a little bit wide through into the penultimate turn, but ultimately managed to gather it up.
Must be Hughes as well, because I think it was Hughes Team Radio that was talking about the grass at turn 9.
Let's have a look here at Mitch Evans. Not using as much curb there on the left-hand side. Going, sorry, the right-hand side for him, left-hand side for us, as he goes into turn 14. Car looks relatively okay on the entry. Come out on the exit of the corner. No big snaps of oversteer or anything along the lines of that. This is Jake Hughes. I wonder if this is going to be where he clipped the grass. Said it was on the exit of turn 6. It's all okay on this occasion. So good lap time there for Jake Hughes. He'll be pretty happy with that. The question is, though, if you get pole position, that's all well and good, but is it going to be a bit of a poison chalice here this afternoon?
Yeah, look at that. It's great to see enthusiasm, the next generation. You can see they've been put together almost in class sizes, haven't they? You can see the age categories going up, and then the families out there on the banking. It really is a spectacular setting.
It's beautiful, isn't it? It's probably Goldilocks weather here.
Yeah,
it's just right.
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, not too hot, not too cold, and yeah, perfect weather to go racing in. And what a lovely facility it is here at Misano as well. You know, one of my favourite circuits to come to. It's just, you know, so well put together, right by the seaside here as well. It's just lovely.
Yeah, so I was hoping, I brought my swimmers. I was hoping to get a little bit of time down at the beach, but unfortunately it was an early call time this morning.
Not the budgie smugglers, right?
No, I'd save the world from that.
So Pascal Wehrlein pops himself back into the Tag Heuer Porsche. He'll be going out with Ollie Rowland head-to-head in the first of our quarter-final duels in just a couple of moments' time.
Okay, so there we have it. Groups A and B have gone out for quali already, and we can go through it right now. Karun and Katie are with me. Lots going on behind us, as you might see, you might not see. Karun, it was an interesting Group A. John-Eric Verton, top of the class FP1, top of the class FP2. He's looking really strong, putting a good time, didn't he?
He's looked strong all day, very quick in free practice, and he's carried on that form. A big gap to his teammate Stoffel van Dorn, which surprised me. Yeah. Stoffel looked pretty quick as well before we got to qualifying, but when it came to it, he just couldn't get the lap together. Jake Hughes was a big standout of Group B, but I think absolutely from Group A. Jeff, you know, just looking at his lap here at the moment, you know, the car just has looked hooked up. Yeah. And I think when you've got these long radius corners, which are unusual in Formula E terms, you know, they're used to these short, sharp 90-degree corners on street circuits on a less abrasive surface. Here, with these long corners and a more traditional surface, the tires work in a different way, and I think that's suiting their Penske setup.
There was a situation there with Oliver Rowland, Katie, where from what I saw, right at the end of his lap, kind of came off track. He was on the grass trying to save it. Didn't seem to affect his time. Gets himself into the quarterfinals. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I think he had a bit of a snap oversteer there. We've actually seen that happen to a few drivers on the exit there of that corner. I think we're going to see it in a minute on the screen. But yeah, it was quite a spectacular moment there. He handled that really well. I did think for a minute he was going to hit the grass and then he was going to be in a bit more of a trickier situation than it ended up being. But
yeah, he'd actually done his personal best on a previous lap.
So it was okay.
So he was just trying to improve on that. But it was odd, in that first group, only Verne improved on that final lap off the 4 drivers who entered the duel. The other 3 had done a good enough time earlier on in the session, but they didn't really improve on that last lap. And yeah, Oliver Rowland putting on a good display of car control there to save it.
Katie, when we was talking before, we mentioned the Antonio Felix da Costa situation, and you mentioned that it could potentially be their way of getting him going, so to speak. You know, and that didn't quite happen for him today.
yeah, I mean, when you're looking at the timing screens, it is so tight. I think it was in the second group there, it was 4 tenths between the drivers in the duels there that got through to the duels. So it's really small margins he's looking to find out on the track here. I think, you know, we saw a great performance, though, from both McLarens. I think they did really well in Group B. Andretti obviously struggling. There was under investigation for a technical infringement, I think, for Jake Dennis. I don't know if we had an update on that.
I don't think we've had any news. Well, I walk out here to find you, so we'll find out when we go back to the commentary box. But yeah, you know, I think it's normally to do with a tyre pressure infraction potentially. But we'll see. I'm sure the team and the stewards will be having a chat about that.
You touched on Jake Hughes, top in the charts again, Group B. He looked comfortable. He put out a quick time straight away initially as the cars went out. Correct.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, he went out and did an 18-1 straight away on that first run, and then just chipped away, got into the 117s. And actually, his last lap was very strong in the first sector, and then it went away from him. So you'd have to say that he and Jev are looking like the 2 favourites to get to the finals, and I think that'll be a fantastic final if we get those 2 up there.
Yeah, and we mentioned Felix da Costa situation. Nico Muller is the other part of that conversation, and he delivered right at the end, got himself into 4th.
He's looked good in qualifying all season long, hasn't he? You know, they haven't quite had the race pace and the energy management to go with it, perhaps, when we got to the race. But in qualifying, he's looked very strong, and as you said, once again delivered to get in the duels.
Well, that's Groups A and B done now, and now we can go and enjoy ourselves for the quarterfinals. Lots to look forward to here in Misano. So let's get you back to our commentary team of DC and Tom Brooks.
Yeah, thanks, JJ. Looking forward to the duels then, the quarterfinals coming up here in Misano. It's going to be hugely exciting to see how this one works out because there are 4 sets of quarterfinals, 8 drivers, of course, in total, and they go head-to-head over the course of 1 lap. So let's see how this is going to work out in the sunshine in Misano and see exactly what is going to happen. Great to see so many fans here in Italy as well. As we have a look at the highlights of the group qualifying stages that we had just a few moments ago. Group A went out on track and we saw a few frantic moments for a few drivers, including Sergio Sette Camara, who was actually lucky to make it out on track following some technical problems in free practice earlier on this morning. And we saw Antonio Felix da Costa flirting with the outside of the circuit and clipping the grass as well. Unfortunately, he was not a driver who made it through into the duels of what could be potentially a very pivotal weekend for him in the Porsche. We saw Oliver Rowland doing his best Tokyo Drift impression. Should have left that for a couple of weeks ago, really, when we were in Japan. Ended up grass tracking and thankfully avoided any further dramas and made it crucially through into the duels. Lovely bit of car control nonetheless. Let's look at some more super sideways shots of the boy from Barnsley, who was also in the duels here this afternoon. We saw also Sette Camara going off the track. Antonio Felix da Costa, who didn't make it through, said, oh, well, I just saw him whilst I was on the lap, but that was a bit of a distraction. And we saw Group B going out a little bit later on in the session, and it was big drama, unfortunately, for reigning world champion Jake Dennis, who did not make the cut. Both Andretti's actually out of group stages of qualifying. Norman Nato here, you can see, going off the track, and this is the pivotal moment here for Jake Dennis, clipping the wall on turn 9. Ended up setting a lap time, but it was only good enough for 10th quickest overall in that session, so he'll be right at the very back of the field. His saving grace is that it's expected to be a very energy efficient race. And then it was like downtown San Marino right at the very end of the session, everybody vying for track position, trying to find some clear air as they got ready to set their final representative lap times in the session. Dan Tickton clipping the sausage curbs on the outside into the final sector. Cost him a little bit of time. I wonder if it might have actually damaged the car slightly there too.
Yeah, it was a big hit.
It certainly was, yeah. You can see the car sliding his way around. But, Tickton not making it through out of the group stages of qualifying. I love the passionate fans in Italy. It's quite a sight to behold. Anyway, here is the dual split then for round 6 of the Misano E-Prix. Oliver Rowland versus Pascal Wehrlein in the quarterfinals. Then it'll be Max Günther and Jean-Eric Vergne, Sam Bird and Mitch Evans, and Nico Müller and Jake Hughes. So some very interesting names there, and some drivers who will be getting on for being disappointed. Just a couple of minutes to go until we get this session underway. Now, interestingly here, DC, every time we've seen Oliver Rowland in the duel so far this year, he's gone on to take pole position.
That's a good stat.
Do you think he can go and do it again?
I don't have the crystal ball, but I don't think he's got the underlying pace. The confidence of the McLaren drivers is definitely shining through. So let us see what unfolds. You're going to have to deliver a very disciplined lap.
You can see there, 7 pole positions he's had so far, and the most of any driver who has not won a championship to date as he exits out of pit lane. We'll be going head-to-head here with Pascal Wehrlein, the championship leader, nicked away from Nick Cassidy a couple of weeks ago in Tokyo. Let's see what he's going to be able to do.
Yeah, he's a top quality driver, Roland. You know, such a strong natural talent. Came up the junior ranks racing against the likes of Pierre Gasly and Carlos Sainz and people like that, and was you know, very, very competitive against all of those drivers. So he's got a huge amount of natural speed, and as you said, illustrated by the fact he's taken 2 pole positions already this year.
Yeah, and 3 consecutive podiums in the last 3 races there as well. So let's see whether he's going to be able to repeat that feat here this afternoon. Of course, double header in Misano. Tomorrow's race 2 laps shorter than we have here for this one. So you can see the quarterfinals, we've had these 2 going head-to-head once so far this year. 60% of you in the predictor reckon it's going to go the way of the current championship leader Pascal Wehrlein in the Tag Heuer Porsche. See whether Ollie can try and dispel that theory.
He's a big lad, so he's got a little bit of a weight disadvantage in comparison to Pascal. I'm not sure what the actual offset is, but it's going to definitely play a part.
Yeah, we'll see how it affects things here as Oliver comes out onto the track in the Nissan then. Let's see what he's going to be able to do. Of course, only one bite of the cherry here for these drivers, and what we've seen traditionally so far in the group stages of qualifying is it takes 2 laps to get the optimum heat into the tyre. So how do you think that's, I mean, everyone's in the same circumstances, but how is that going to affect things in terms of the overall lap time, do you reckon?
I think they're now got their eye in, up to speed with the racetrack. It's a nice surface, shouldn't be an issue getting them in, quite frankly. So I think it'll be less of an effect here than on the more traditional Formula E tracks.
What we have to remember, of course, is they've got more power. They've got an extra 50 kilowatts of power in the dual phase, which means that they're arriving at the corners faster, and because the tires are in a less than optimum condition, it does make the braking performance, you know, trickier, because you're coming faster, you've got less grip, so picking up braking point into corners like this, for example, into 8, you know, that extra 2 or 3 meters can make a big performance difference in terms of lap time, so you've got to really be able to judge that right.
Well, let's see what happens as Ollie comes in towards the final sector. This is where attack mode is going to be activated in the race as we come in towards turn 12, just on the outside of this corner. Traditionally, we're used to seeing the attack mode being quite early on in the lap, but here, due to the unique characteristics of the Misano circuit, it's actually going to be quite late. And that is where drivers will have 350 kilowatts of power, like they have actually here in the dual stages as well. As we look at Wehrlein making his way through into the final sector. Over the timing line then comes Oliver Rowland. Let's see what it's going to be like down in towards the first corner. Couple of bites of the cherry going in towards turn 1, but otherwise looking okay.
Another point on this sort of layout of racetrack, Wehrlein can see Rowland at most points on most straights, which wouldn't be the case on your typical street circuit. So it gives him a sort of reference of, oh, I'm going well, I'm getting closer, or I'm having a bad lap.
If he's able to tell 19,000th second that he's closer or further away, I'll be really impressed.
Yeah, he'll only be able to claim that if he goes quicker at the end of the lap.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's dropping away now, isn't it? Nearly 2 Oh, snap of oversteer there, and that will compromise Roland all the way up this straight. That is the longest straight on the track, and the exit out of 7 is so important. And he's gone deep again there, trying to make it up. So, and on the grass, but well, something's gone on with Verline, because he seems to have dropped even more time.
Let's have a look and see what it's going to be like in the second sector. Yeah, Verline's picked up a little bit now, just up to under 1.5 tenths of a second. There's track limits and there's track limits, isn't there? Going into turn 12 there for Roland. You can see that gap is coming down now. What's it going to be like for Roland as he comes through the final corner, then across the timing line comes the number 22 in the Nissan, 1:17.7. That's still not a bad lap time, all things considered, but is it going to be enough to knock out Pascal Verline as he comes to the timing line? It's going to be Verline who goes through a 1:17.549. So Roland does get knocked out of the duels for the first time in 2024, and it is the the championship leader, I should say, who makes it through into the semi-finals, the first of the drivers to do so here this afternoon.
Yeah, I think that was a nice little contest, but neither of them appear to have really aced their laps. So the track has taken a step forward. Performance.
Yeah, we'll have a look and see what happens over the course of these duels as well. This is just coming through into the final corner here for Pascal Verline, looking at a super slow-mo of him. What's his exit going to be like out of here? This is where we saw Roland getting it all sorts of sideways earlier on. And not using anywhere near as much of the curb as some of the drivers we've seen so far. Slightly wide there as well, just going through turn 7. Otherwise all okay. That's where we saw Roland making that mistake, of course. So, from the first of our quarter-final duels over to the second, we have Maximilian Günther, race winner from Tokyo last weekend, and Jean-Eric Vergne, the man who has led every practice session we've had so far here this weekend, and of course topped his Group A qualifying stages a few moments ago. And surprisingly, a lot of you think it's going to go the way of the double Formula E champion, as he now comes to the timing line. But Günther on home soil here for Maserati this weekend in Misano. Are we going to see an upset and possibly see Jev knocked out of these stages of qualifying? Get an idea of what it looks like through the first sector. Slightly wide there, just going through the left-hander of turn 5, and I wonder whether that's going to cost him. Vergne is already some 700ths of a second up, and he's increasing that advantage still going through that first sector.
Yeah, he missed the apex as well there, didn't he, of that turn 7 right-hander, and he's dumped a load of time, 6/10 faster than just the first sector. So at this phase, on the straight, I wonder if the team will be on the radio to Jeff saying, look, just do a safe lap, you're clear, basically.
When you've got that much time, you'd want to hear that you just don't need to risk anything. He's going to be incredibly difficult. Still a further 2 tenths quicker in the middle sector, so this is going to be a no contest.
Yeah, just in a different postcode at the moment is Jean-Eric Vergne in terms of lap times. Over a second the advantage he has now over Max Günther. Well, he made it into the duels, but unfortunately is not going to be a progression into the semi-finals as he gets it out of shape in the final corner. And 18.5, that's a second slower than we saw in the earlier stages of the session. What about Vergne? He's going to come across the line. It's going to be easily fastest, and it's going to be an easy progression into the semi-finals as well with a 1:17.476. That's the quickest time we've seen so far here in the dual sessions. Here's Penske and Jean-Eric Vergne make it through into the semi-finals. Fortunately, winner from Tokyo, Max Günther and Maserati don't progress any further forwards. It was a scrappy lap, wasn't it? Oh, that's why. That won't have helped him at all. We saw Dan Ticktum doing that in the group stages a few minutes ago.
Just to book a little trip to the chiropractor, I think, after that one.
I tell you what, we're going to see a few of those in the race, I think. When you get the wheel
chiropractors?
I'd
like to see that. I tell you what, is that just a case of he's pushing on and he's now at that stage where he was overdriving?
Yeah, I think you commit to the corner with the belief you'll make it through, and it's only once you arrive at the apex you realise there's just not enough front grip there. And the momentum carries you wider than you would have hoped for.
Quarter-final 3 then, over to Sam Bird and Mitch Evans to guide us through this one. Let's see how it is going to work out between the Briton and the Kiwi. Of course, those two used to be teammates up until this year when Bird finally switched over to the Neon McLaren team after a good a couple of rumours that are going around for a fair while. Bird, of course, involved in the drama with Evans' teammate Nick Cassidy in free practice too. And let's see what it's going to be like for these drivers, because despite the fact that Bird's made it through into the duels, he was nowhere near his teammate in terms of the lap times. And you can see slightly wide there just going into turn 5. A couple of bites of the cherry on the entry, puts him slightly wide on the exit.
It's very tight though. Look at it, only 23 hundredths of a second in that first intermediate that we've looked at here. Bird getting a good smooth run coming out of 7. That'll help us exit. If you look in the corner of your picture there, you can see Evans now coming into that corner. Still super tight on the times, DC.
Yeah, it's tight. So this is about who doesn't make a mistake. They've both opened their laps pretty much nip and tuck. So
it's close, still less than a tenth of a second in it between the two. Lock up there on the front right for Bird into 12. I wonder if that's just going to cost him just half a tenth of a second or so, and Evans again increasing that advantage, still under a tenth of a second as he comes through turn 13 in towards turn 14 now for Sam Bird. What's it going to be like for him? Evans has picked up more of an advantage now in this second sector as Bird comes to the line. It's a 17.7, not the quickest time that we've seen so far. What about Evans through the last couple of corners? Oh, it's very close between the two. This is going to be the closest we've seen so far in these quarter-final duels. And is Evans going to be able to depose Sam Bird? He does by nearly half a second. So Bird made a bit of a meal of that final sector by the looks of things. And it is Mitch Evans and Jaguar saving James Barclay's blushes here. They make it through into the semis.
Yeah, 4/10 was the time. It was just in the last sector of the lap. So that's a big gain there for the McLaren.
Yeah.
Not McLaren, Jaguar.
Quite. Through to the final corner. So this is Mitch Evans just getting it nice and okay through there. All looks good, no snaps of over, so you can see the tyres as they vibrate over those curbs. Doesn't look like much on the TV, but in the car that'll rattle your fillings out.
they're all young lads, healthy teeth. I don't suppose they've got any fillings.
Quarter-final for then Nico Müller in the Abt Cupra versus Jake Hughes. We saw Jake Hughes dominating his group at stages of qualifying, so unsurprisingly a lot of you think it's going to go the way of the Briton in the Neon McLaren. Just saw his teammate being knocked out though, but you know, stranger things have happened. It's a one and done lap this, so there's every opportunity for things to go awry as we look at Müller. Points on the door for Abt Cupra last time out in Tokyo, managing to leapfrog both Mahindra and ERT now in the team standings as a result. Yeah, the tyres chirping away there as he struggles for grip on the front.
Yeah, having looked at how strong Hughes has been through free practice, then only a mistake, I think, will see him not go through. So I can only imagine the 14% that voted for Müller were team members and family.
Down in towards turn 5 we go then here with Jake Hughes. Hughes with an initial advantage. We'll get an idea of what it's like when he comes through the first intermediate time at the first sector. It's looking okay here so far for Nico Müller. Not a bad lap time he's putting together. Hughes only some 12,000 of a second quicker though in that first sector, so it's pretty close in the early stages.
Müller went a bit deep, I think, into that chicane at 8, so that might compromise him. Look there on the bottom right, you see Hughes now into that chicane. Does he get into that? And he does. He gets a cleaner run through. Müller coming through the final part of the lap here, and that cleaner run through the chicane has put Hughes about a tenth ahead.
Yeah, he's just picking up an advantage there. You see the car looking a little bit unsettled on the curb, and Hughes picking up even more of an advantage through the final sector is where Jake has been really strong so far. Müller comes across the line. It's a 17.2. It's a strong lap time here.
Good lap, actually.
Really good for Nico Müller, but I don't think it's going to be enough to depose Jake Hughes. In towards the final corner we go for the Briton. On board we ride in the Neon McLaren, and as Hughes comes to the timeline, it's a 1:16.9. That's the fastest time we've seen so far this weekend. And Jake Hughes, to the delight of Neon McLaren, makes it through into the semi-finals.
And with a great camera angle as well. I love that below the car shot.
It's superb, isn't it? Absolutely superb. It certainly does make things, gives a really good idea, a sense of speed. And, you know, Abt Cupra, given where they've been over the course of this season, I know they had points at Tokyo, but it has been a challenging 2024 for them so far. Thomas Biermeier, damage limitation for him this year, and to get through into the duels again, certainly no mean feat.
I think that told you all you needed to know, mate. Well, I didn't get my lap time, so you tell me.
Slight bit of team radio there for Jake Hughes. I don't think he quite knew how fast he'd gone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and he said he didn't get his lap time, but you can feel when you're on a good lap, and even predict without knowing your lap time what one you've just achieved.
Well, there we are. The quarterfinals are all done then. We say goodbye to Oliver Rowland, to Max Günther, Sam Bird and Nico Müller. And in the semi-finals, it's going to be Pascal Wehrlein for Tag Heuer Porsche, Jean-Eric Vergne for DS Penske in the first lot, and then it'll be Mitch Evans in the Jaguar and Jake Hughes in the Neon McLaren. And then, of course, that will go into the finals, and we'll have two drivers going head-to-head in the front row fight here in Misano. Keen to see how this is all going to work out. Well, the sun is shining here in the San Marino region. And we're looking forward to seeing what is going to happen in the second of the semi-final, in the semi-finals, I should say, rather the second lot of the duels, as it were, after the quarterfinals a few moments ago. And it's interesting, actually, because on the last 4 consecutive quarterfinal appearances for Jake Hughes, he wasn't able to make it through into the semis. So this is a bit of an anomaly for him. Anyway, just before we get the semi-finals underway here in Misano for round 6, let's head down to Karun, who has been up and down like a fiddler's elbow, but he's over at the E-Pad.
Thank you, Tom. I've door-stopped Ollie Rowland, who was heading back into the pits, but he's kindly joined me here. Ollie, just want to talk about your lap here. We got on board from your helmet cam. Coming out of turn 7, looks like you had a bit of a scruffy exit.
Yeah, it was slightly scruffy, but I was also struggling with the bottoming on the curb.
Right.
Like as I hit the curb, the car was hitting the floor and then jumping quite a lot. In my qualifying group, I managed to avoid it, but in that one, I couldn't.
And then talk to me about the chicane. Was it a bit of frustration here? You're trying to make it up?
My team have been pushing me, to be honest, to be better on the brakes there all day.
Right.
And I had nothing left, to be honest. I braked a bit deep and I was close to being in the wall in turn 9. I had to avoid the wall and then ended up on the grass. So that probably cost me a place in the final, to be honest.
And then I want to ask you about this, because we've seen different approaches. You've gone quite to the inside here at 12. You've used all of that inside blue curb. We've seen, in contrast, I just want to show you Jake Hughes having a slightly different approach, and he's been very quick in this last sector, a slightly wider line. Is that just a driver preference, or is that down to how well the car rides the inside curb or bottoming out?
Honestly, it depends how the braking goes. I've been struggling quite a lot with lock-in in that corner, and I kind of try and brake really late, and if it grips, I take the curb. If not, I go wide like him. So I guess it's probably the same as him. He's trying to push the brake in, and if it grips, he'll take the curb, but if it doesn't, it doesn't. I think, honestly, the difference is quite minimal.
So when it comes to the race, though, you're all going to be everywhere, aren't you? It's going to be 4 wide into that.
It's going to be chaos.
All
doesn't
right.
matter where you start.
Thank you very much for joining us, mate. Thank you. Well done.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Well then, good to hear from Oliver Rowland after group qualifying. Sadly, he will not be progressing forwards into the semi-finals, but nonetheless, a strong performance from him for Nissan, and as we know, it's going to be a very energy important race, so we'll be keen to see how that's going to work out. And qualifying, as we know, is important, but nonetheless, there is going to be an opportunity for him to have a bit of redemption come the race this afternoon. Well then, getting ourselves ready for the duels here for the semi-finals in San Marino. It is time to go at Misano as we see who is going to join us in the finals and that fight for the front row. It's going to be Pascal Wehrlein versus Jean-Eric Vergne in the first lot, and then we'll have Mitch Evans versus Jake Hughes in the second. Of course, only one driver from each can progress forwards. If you look at the teams now just popping the tyres onto the car, final preparations taking place. I mean, given Jean-Eric Vergne's pace so far this weekend, you'd be hard to bet against him, really.
Yeah, well, I think it's a cracking lineup actually in both these semis. But yeah, he's just seemed confident every time he's hit the track. So yeah, you've got to favour him, I think, at this stage.
Absolutely, you can see the double champion Jean-Eric Vergne led both free practice sessions, led his group stages of qualifying earlier on here as well, and has been in imperious form so far in Misano. But of course, Pascal Wehrlein, championship leader, 2 pole positions so far in 2023. For his worst grid position, she was 10th place in Diriyah when he didn't make it through into the duels. Other than that, he's been in the duels on every occasion so far this year. That, meanwhile, is Max Günther, who didn't make it through for the quarterfinals. Going over that sausage curb on the exit of turn 11. And, yeah, managing to gather it up all okay, but nonetheless, that would have been a fairly hard landing because, well, these cars are not exactly known for their comfort. Just have another look as he goes through into that right-hander. You see just a little bit of instability on the rear as he comes in, and at that point, it's too late to fix it, isn't it?
Yeah, well, if you're turning away from the apex on entry, by the time you got it sorted out, you then had too much momentum, carried them out onto the point beyond the curb and over the sleeping policeman.
You don't want to do that too often because you can start to damage the monocoque there. I think, you know, there's a lot of energy going into the bottom of the car in an unconventional way. It's not the way that the cars are designed to take impacts, and that, you know, too much of that at too high a speed can really damage the monocoque. Well, here we are then for the semi-finals. It's going to be Pascal Wehrlein versus Jean-Eric Vergne in the first of them. And then it will be Mitch Evans in the Jaguar and Jake Hughes, who's been very quick so far over the course of one lap in the Neil McLaren. Who of those four drivers is going to be joining us in the final? First up, it is going to be Pascal Wehrlein versus Jean-Eric Vergne. They've not met in a duel actually since Jakarta back in 2022. On that occasion, Vergne won the quarterfinal on his way to taking pole position. On that occasion. In terms of the predictor, 63% of you think it's going to go the way of the double champion for DS Penske, 37% in favour of Pascal Wehrlein. Wehrlein will be out of the door first, so it'll be interesting to see what sort of reference points Vergne is going to have out on track as we wait for the green light to come on and the drivers to head out onto the circuit here for their one and only flying lap in this session.
I guess every driver's different in how they prepare for a single flying lap. I guess they'd be catching their breath sitting at the end of the pit lane, maybe visualising partially the lap.
Yeah.
Maybe singing a bit of, you know, rock music, whatever their favourite motivational song is.
Well, what did you do when you went through that era of single lap qualifying?
The helmet were fantastic to sing songs. It made you sound.
What was your song of choice?
Well, it depended on whether I was, you know, in a sort of serene mood or really feeling a bit like headbanging. You're a bit of an Iron Maiden fan or AC/DC.
I'd love to hear some of your team radio singing to yourself.
I never broadcast
AC/DC at the end of the pit lane before a single lap qualifying.
Right, well, drivers then out on track. Pascal Wehrlein versus Jean-Eric Vergne warming themselves up just out of turn 7. This long run down the back straight into turn 8. We've seen a few drivers coming a cropper here so far this weekend. As they go on the brakes into the chicane. All well and good on this warming up lap as they're getting heat into the tyres on the brakes, trying to get them into the right operating with a very narrow window on these Hankook tyres. And cycling themselves up for a lap. At this point, DC, you know, you've done one lap qualifying. What's going through your mind as you get ready to go for glory?
Yeah, just feeling the car, feeling that it's performing as it did previously. I guess there's not much they can actually do at this this phase to change anything. So it's about trying to know your machine, and it's an extension of your body. So for those who've never driven a race car before, or if you've skied, then you know whether you're on the front of the ski or the back of the ski or perfectly aligned in the middle. That's what you're trying to achieve, that perfect alignment to four-wheel drift it without visibly seeing it drift through the corner.
Wehrlein there looking pretty good through the first few corners. That's right on board here with Jean-Eric Vergne as he comes down in towards T1. What's it going to be like for him?
There's not a lot of rear stability there, is there? A lot of corrections on the wheel as he braked and turned in. It's quick, but it looks on the edge for him there on that entry to the first corner. Well, there again, there, look at that. Into 5, just a lot of correction, lots of micro corrections on the steering wheel, and that's cost him a bit of time. Wehrlein, a snap of oversteer as he got through the apex of 8. He got away without hitting the wall at 9. We'll see as we come through the quicker part of the lap here. The rear of the car came around nicely for him there and gets into the apex of 12.
Tidy, yeah, he's having to work a bit less hard, I think, behind the wheel. As you see with this middle sector, which I think will be the defining moment.
Well, picked it up.
Picked up, Vergne, so he's kind of worked out what the car's doing. So it's all going to be down to the run to the line.
17.1 for Pascal Wehrlein as we wait here for Jean-Eric Verne making his way through. He's picked up a 10th.5 of a second. Second sector really strong there for Verne in the DS Penske. Runs it over the inside of the curb into turn 13. It's getting mightily close, though, as they come through the final couple of corners. Over the timing line here for Jean-Eric Verne. Is it going to be enough to knock out Pascal Wehrlein in the semi-finals? It's not. Jean-Eric Verne makes it through by 58 thousandths of a second there. Pascal Wehrlein is out of qualifying, the championship leader here in the Tag Heuer Porsche, as Verne continues his form once again that we've seen so far this weekend.
Yeah, but Wehrlein is still going to start in the first 2 rows of the grid, isn't it? Which is, you know, for the championship and for the race, that's good.
It's out of drama's way, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, exactly. He's good. I think he'd be pretty pleased with that.
Okay, mate. Good job. Good job. In lap.
So the team pretty pleased with that then, as Jean-Eric Verne makes it out of the semi-finals and into the finals. And that front row fight here, as we now shift our attention over to Mitch Evans versus Jake Hughes. The smart money would be on Jake Hughes, given his form so far in that Neon McLaren. 52% of you, 58% of you should I say, think it is going to go the way of the Briton. So through the final corner we go, here with Mitch Evans as he comes to the timing line. Slight kick up of the dust there as he runs a little bit wide out of the final corner, so he's already exploring the limits before he's even started the lap.
Yeah, that won't affect as he goes through this first section of corners. A bit of rear movement as he went into one, but tight enough through the chicane. Hughes is starting to open his lap.
See what it's like for him. Oh, not much stability on the rear. A little bit sketchy going through T1 there.
Yeah, right on the limit, which by definition of a qualifying lap is where you want to be, but certainly looked a bit wider than Evans as he went into 2.
Let's see whether that's cost Hughes a little bit of time. We ride on board. This is the fantastic shot, giving you a real sense of speed as this is underneath the car of Jake Hughes. 8 thousandths of a second is the advantage. 31 thousandths of a second now it is in the first sector. Again, a couple of bites of the cherry there for Mitch Evans. Car doesn't look just as compliant as he wanted it to be through that chicane for my money. In towards the final sector we go. What's it going to be like? Hughes closing up now and really taking a lot of curb there on the inside here for Mitch Evans. It's only going to be out the final couple of corners, and Hughes has pulled out near a turn for 2/10 of a second advantage. Scrappy middle sector there for Mitch Evans, costing the Kiwi time as he comes through the final couple of corners. Across the timing line we go. For Mitch Evans, it's a 17.1, but what's it going to look like here for Jake Hughes? It says at the moment he's 3/10 of a second down, so has Hughes made a mistake here at this point? Comes through the final corner we go in the Neon McLaren. Across the timing line, is it going to be the way of Evans or Hughes? It is going to be the way of Mitch Evans, so Jake must have made a mistake on his flying lap, which we didn't see, and unfortunately it has cost him an opportunity at the front row.
Yeah, well, that final sector, as we know, a bit tricky down through 11 into 12, so we'll wait for the replay to see where he lost the time. As Karun was saying, given the nature of this racetrack, as we see the replay of where this mistake happened.
So this is into 11. Oh, he's going to run wide. He's going to do a Gunter, isn't he? Yeah.
Yeah. So went all in, carried too much speed through there, and that was enough to see him have to get out of the power. Managed to make the apex at 12, which was pretty impressive.
Nonetheless, a little bit of a disappointing end to Jake Hughes' fight for pole position. Would have been the first time he's seen him on pole since the middle of last year, but nonetheless, a impressive performance for Hughes to get through to the semi-finals for the first time in a little while. And it is going to be Mitch Evans then versus Jean-Eric Verne in the finals here for round 6 in Misano. And that is going to be a tantalising prospect, because when was the last time we saw Mitch Evans on the front row of the grid? It would have been Diriyah back in January, so long time since he's been on the front row of the grid. Look at some super slow-mos of the Kiwis lap, just coming through turn 7 here. This is the corner before the long run on the back straight. It didn't look too dramatic for Mitch Evans there. Slight snap of oversteer mid-corner, if anything, but tidy enough lap. James Barkley just watching on. He's got his readers out as he just has a look at the timing screens to see just the advantage that Evans had over Jake Hughes there. Let's have a look then, shall we, at the dual splits once again, and just remind you who has progressed forwards into the finals then. So we say goodbye to Pascal Wehrlein and to Jake Hughes from the semis. And it is going to be Mitch Evans for Jaguar TCS Racing and Jean-Eric Vergne for DS Penske, who join us in the fight for pole position here this afternoon. Looking forward to seeing what is going to happen with this one and which of the drivers is going to emerge on top ahead of the E-Prix. Well, not long to go until we get the fight for pole position underway here in Misano. Let's head down to Karun before we get the finals underway with Jean-Eric Vergne and Mitch Evans.
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, Jake Hughes has looked superb all day long. He did a 16.9 earlier on. But when it came to this recent semi-final against Jean-Eric Vergne, in the recent semi-final, he did a 17.4. And that's, I think, one of the first things I spotted is he's gone really wide at the first corner there, gone deep. That's compromised his run through 2 and 3, and that's already put him on the back foot as he's got going into the lap. So he lost, remember, half a second, as I said before, compared to his previous run. Into 5, decent run through there, nothing really too untoward, I could see. Let's get up into 6 and 7. We're looking at the rear camera here from the rear wheel. Not, unfortunately, the roll hoop camera failed on this occasion, so can't quite see his hands, but looks like a pretty clean run through 6 and 7, heading down towards 8 and 9, the chicane. Now, the last sector of the lap is where he was really strong earlier on in the session, and we're getting into that part, quite close to the wall there, but that's what you need to do in qualifying. That's coming into now the final 3 corners. He's into 11 there. That's where, look at that. That is where the big chunk of time has gone. I'll go back again a little bit and just play it along in slow motion there. Snap of oversteer, 11 over that curb, big clunk, and that is where his lap went away. And unfortunately, well, you know, I said before the session, I thought a Jev versus Hughes final is what we were going to get, and it would have been super exciting. But unfortunately, those 2 mistakes, at turn 1 and at turn 11, has put an end to Jake Hughes' chances today.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed, Karun. Good to hear there about Jake Hughes' lap time there in that session, and why it all went away for the Briton. But, you know, second row of the grid, I think he'll be happy enough with that, to be honest with you. And given the sort of race that we're expecting, especially, good opportunity for him to make some good progress forwards. And he's sort of out of harm's way, he's not in the mid-pack, and especially as it's all going to concertina up under racing conditions through those first few corners, he'll have a good opportunity to try and stay relatively out of trouble. As the preparation now begins for the finals here, with Mitch Evans in the cockpit, ready to go out onto the circuit for one final time here. See them there just keeping the car as cool as they possibly can. And then James Barkley, who's now taken the glasses off, and must be listening to our commentary here in the box, I reckon. So then, ready to go in the fight for pole position for round 6 of the Misano E-Prix here in the ABB FIA Formula E World Championship. It is going to be Mitch Evans versus Jean-Eric Vergne going head-to-head in the last of our duels. This is a bit of a mock-up of what we could see. These are their fastest laps from the semi-finals here, Karun. What do you make of this?
Well, we just got started, so we can have a look. It's a tricky angle to look at from here, but you know, both drivers got a tidier run through turn 1 than Jake Hughes did, and I think that's where it set Evans up against Hughes, using different bits of the track and the curb on the apex of turn 5. A slightly tighter line for Jean-Eric Vergne into 6 and 7, and pinches a bit more off the inside curb. Let's see as we get into 8 and 9 as to which of the drivers were more committed on that big sausage curb on the right-hand side. It looks like Evans maybe grabbed a bit more of that, and now into the faster section towards the end of the lap. Little bit of a break for 10 as you take the curb, and then again a big bite of the cherry on the inside. Evans once again using more curb on the apex with the Jaguar car there. Penultimate corner, the left-hander, and now into the final one. Yeah, I mean, both drivers got pretty tidy laps, wasn't it? I think in terms of the lap time, it looked like Jev had a slight advantage, not just there, but also all through the day he's had a slight advantage. And you'd have to say, going into the final, he's got to be the favourite.
Yeah, well, there's a lot riding on this for Jean-Eric Vergne. He can officially tie Sebastian Buemi's pole record of 16 here this afternoon as well. So let's see what that is going to look like for the double champion. You can see how we've got here from the quarters into the semis and then here into the finals as well. Be keen to see what is going to happen here for this one. I suppose there's a bit of an interest as well going into the E-Prix itself, because no drivers are going to particularly want to be leading for that long, given the energy efficiency race that we're expecting. Do you think there's an argument to say that whoever starts in pole position might want to make a bit of a poor start, shall we say, so that they can drop behind and sit in second?
Well, that may be the case later, but right now, I think the mindsets will be, I'm a race driver, the car's talking to me the way it is, how can I exploit the performance and the track on this day in history? There's the psychological boost of being fastest person.
Both of these drivers have taken pole in Italy, of course, before in Rome.
Yep.
Evans was on pole in 2023, Jev on pole in 2022, so they, they're experienced hands at this sort of stuff.
It's interesting though, because Evans hasn't actually qualified on pole so far this year, despite actually having the second highest average qualifying positions on the grid in 2024. So I wonder if he'll be able to break that duck here. He was billed as the King of Rome after having taken a good number of victories on the streets. Now we move over to Misano for our round in Italy. And let's see whether he is going to be able to pick up where he left off last July.
King of Rome just doesn't sound right. It should be Emperor.
It's a good point. It's a good point. It's only coined by his engineer last year.
Well, DC can go down and educate him, yeah?
Have a word.
It's a bit of history.
Well, Jaguar team then watching on as the drivers get the heat into the tyres. And the brakes then for one final time. Track temperature, yeah, really beginning to hot up. What's it like atmospherically out there? Is it sort of, I'm guessing it's hotter than it's ever been. You've been in and out of the commentary box, so.
It is lovely. Yeah. I mean, it's it's in the mid to low 20s. Genuinely perfect weather, isn't it? It's not a cloud up in the sky. It's just a nice place.
Pace because the tyres feel hot. Copy.
Well, here we go then, ready for Mitch Evans to come around the final corner of turn 14 and begin his one and only flying lap in the finals. Hasn't taken pole position so far in 2024. Is he going to be able to depose the fastest man so far this weekend of Jean-Eric Vergne? Nice and tidy there through the first corner, looks okay through turns 2, 3 and 4 as well. All good on the exit, gets a strong run on the way down into turn 5 also.
We have to wait to find out, isn't it? Because Jean-Eric's just starting his lap, heading into turn 1. You can see bottom right of corner.
Well, let's see what the split time is going to be here for Mitch Evans. 27.2, not the fastest that we've seen so far over the course of that first sector, but Vergne looking okay as we ride on board with the DS Penske driver now. A little bit later on in the lap here for Mitch Evans in the braking zone for turns 8 and 9. This is where it can all go so wrong, but absolutely textbook there for Mitch Evans. He's poking this one up an absolute treat as he comes through the last couple of corners. These decreasing radius right-handers. All looks okay there for now. That's where we saw Jake Hughes in the semi-finals making a bit of a meal of it, but all good. Vergne was just 0.004 of a second down on Evans in the first sector. Is he going to be able to pick it up? No, he's lost time further still. Evans is on an absolute flyer here in the Jaguar. Comes around the final corner. What's the time going to be as he comes across the line? It's a 17.068 for Mitch Evans. And now we wait for Jean-Eric Vergne, the last couple of corners for him as he goes through turn 13. Looks all okay, but is it going to be enough to try and get himself onto pole position here in Misano? Out of the final corner, slight snap of oversteer on the exit. He comes to the line. It's not enough. Mitch Evans continues where he left off in Rome in 2023, and he takes pole position for Jaguar TTS Racing here on our first visit to Misano. A great lap time there for Mitch Evans. And his back was against the wall after a challenging Tokyo where he ended up in the wall a couple of weeks ago, and he bounces back with pole.
It's all in the middle sector, wasn't it? 0.13 was in the middle sector of the lap. There's only 200s in the final sector.
Come on, pole position, yes! Well done, mate, well done. First one of the year.
Well, you can tell what it means. We were talking about it beforehand. You know, in the overall scheme of this race, will that be a huge advantage? Well, probably not. But it just means that you've got your car sorted, engineers have done their job, mechanics, the whole team, and then the driver's gone and performed.
I love this as well with James Barkley. He goes around congratulating all of the team. You know, real sort of family effort there with Jaguar TCS Racing, and you can see exactly what it means. Also 3 points as well in the championship. You know, we're only on round 6, but every point matters, and that'll be nothing to turn his nose up out there for Mitch Evans as he comes into the weighbridge. And we'll be presenting him with the Julius Baer Pole Position Award later on here as well. Just looking at some super slow-mos, he just looked in control throughout the lap. He wasn't overdriving the car, wasn't pushing it beyond its limits.
Yeah, it's nice to see the contrasting styles on this track, actually, than Mitch using more of the circuit on the exit and actually through the apex, quite notably at 12. John Eric a little, let's say, more disciplined in his track use, but two different ways of delivering a lap time at just over a 10th difference.
Yeah, fantastic for Mitch Evans, fantastic for Jaguar TCS Racing as well. Just having a look at the qualifying order, that is in fact Jaguar's first pole position of 2024 as well, would you believe it or not? So considering where they've been in the championship, they've always been there and thereabouts. They haven't actually started at the head of the grid so far in season 10.
That's a strong performance, very well deserved, and you can tell just how much it meant to the team.
Well, we're keen to see what Mitch Evans is going to be saying after that as well. See Karun Chandler down there, he's got his shades on, he'll be chatting to him.
There must be two of them, because he was just literally sitting beside me in the commentary box.
Omnipresent. Well, Jaguar there, smiles from ear to ear, especially considering that on the other side of the garage, Nick Cassidy was in the wall at the end of FP2. The team had a lot of work to do to get that car ready in time for qualifying. Cassidy, of course, disappointed to not make it through into the duels from the group stages, but his teammate on the other side of the garage, right when it mattered, James Barkley there, delighted because Mitch Evans takes his first pole position of the 2024 season. And credit to John O'Byrne as well, he's been quick so far this weekend.
I'd say the car was getting more and more difficult to drive as well. I could not do what I wanted anymore, and what you did on TC, I mean on traction, was quite bad. I could really feel it.
Well, that'll be a no from the driver for any changes that they made. And yeah, car changing and evolving as track temperature goes up.
I was just about to say that, actually, because, you know, the car looks pretty good in the semi-finals, but then, you know, coming to the finals, let's say it's a couple of degrees hotter, what kind of a difference can that actually make?
Well, it can bring a balance to you, and it can take a balance away from you. You know, a racetrack, I always say, is a living thing. It may be more obvious if you're a skier or a golfer. You know, if you play golf in the morning when there's moisture, then if you've got the same lie as you have in the afternoon, the putt strength doesn't need to be as much in the afternoon when the grass is got less water on it. You don't physically see that on the racetrack, but track temperature definitely affects performance. You just hear the drivers exchanging their quality shootout.
We've had skiing analogies, we've had golf analogies, we've probably have a hockey analogy given what we expected the race to be this afternoon.
Indeed.
We're just having a look here at James Barkley in the paddock and making his way back through. See what it meant to him. Delight for James, delight for Jaguar, and delight for the fans here as well. Let's head down then to catch up with the man who starts on pole position for round 6, Mitch Evans.
Well, Mitch Evans, huge congratulations on your 8th career pole. Well done.
Yeah, thanks. Honestly, wasn't expecting that when I woke up this morning. Normally these tracks don't really tend to suit our package as much, but I think, you know, the guys and girls at Jaguar have done an incredible job to put together a good car for these for this type of track. So yeah, I wasn't feeling too confident after practice, but yeah, we kind of just kept calm, and the car was really consistent throughout qualifying, which I wasn't really experiencing throughout practice, and I was able to kind of build into it and build my confidence. So yeah, full credit to everyone on the team. It's probably not the track you want to be at pole at, but I'll take it, take the points, and then yeah, we'll obviously focus for the race this afternoon. It's going to be a wild one, probably.
A wild one indeed. What is it about Italy? You seem to have had a pole position here before as well.
True. I thought it was maybe just Rome, but let's see at the end of the day of how kind it is to me. But so far, yeah, it's been a good day. Yeah, as I said, a little bit surprising, but obviously very satisfying, and hopefully we can continue this into the race.
Absolutely. Keep up the pace in the race, indeed. I'd now like to welcome Marco Diavololi and Giorgio Butarelli to present you with your pole position trophy. They are both students from ITS Maker.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, delight there for Mitch Evans then. Pole position here in Misano for round 6 as we get ready to go racing here this afternoon. Well, there we are. Mitch Evans takes pole position. I tell you what, that's the gentleman on the left who was presenting the trophy had a hell of a hairpiece on it, didn't he?
Jealous.
I am, only because mine's falling out.
Yeah, well, that was a great moment for them to be up with fastest person on track. You see a super slow-mo coming off final corner and shooting for the line. So those extra 3 points bagged. We'll see just how it plays out in the race later.
Yeah, it's going to be hugely interesting to see what happens here. And, you know, I said that just before they went out for the finals as to what it's going to be like when the lights go green. Let's go down to Jean-Eric Verne, though. Starts second on the grid.
Jean-Eric Verne, congratulations starting from P2. Talk us through, what is the start of the race going to look like?
At least the starting from P2 is going to be way better than starting 14 or 15 like I was in Tokyo. So yeah, I'm happy to have a clear view for the start. So yeah, then we see how the race will go.
Who do you think your biggest rivals are matched on pace going to be today?
I don't know. It's this kind of racing where, you know, the guy that is 15 can actually be in your gearbox in a lap and a half or 2 laps. So I don't really know.
And is strategy going to be everything?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's going to be a tough race in the sense that I don't think anybody will want to lead. So yeah, it would be tough to find your place in the pack, and yeah, we're gonna have to. I don't know. It would be tough, I think.
Very much looking forward to it. I think you are too. Thank you very much, Jean-Eric Verne.
Yeah, good to hear there from Jean-Eric Verne. Starts on the front row of the grid. It is going to be hugely interesting to see what happens in this race. We're expecting what we call a peloton style race, you know, a Portland style, if you watched that last year, where it's sort of a case of follow the leader, the energy recovery here, because there's no real heavy braking zones, and that's how they can't regen their energy. Because we don't really have that here in Misano, it essentially means that energy management is going to be absolutely critical. Therefore, drivers are going to want to follow the leader so they can save energy behind in the slipstream and so on and so forth, just do everything they can. And, you know, come the race this afternoon, who knows what is going to happen. There's a very good possibility, especially given the width of this circuit, we could end up 4 wide at some particular points as well. You can see some highlights here from the group stages of qualifying. This was Sergio Sette Camera exploring the gravel on the exit of turn 8 and turn 9. And likewise as well, it didn't go quite the way for Jake Dennis, the reigning champion in the Andretti. He finished 10th overall. He's going to be starting right at the very back of the field. The reigning world champion with a lot of work to do. Dan Ticktum explored the sausage curbs on the outside of turn 11 as well. Not the only driver there who unfortunately made a bit of a meal of it, but looking forward to seeing what is going to happen here for the E-Prix this afternoon.
Right, so there you have it. We have our pole sitter for race 6 of this Formula E season here in Italy. It's Mitch Evans with that impressive performance, who managed to put it on pole in the final there. It was a brilliant display for Mitch Evans. It's the first time he's been on pole this season, so we'll get to see later on if he can convert that into a win. Well, I'm down here on the pit lane with Katie Muller. It really was an enjoyable quali, Katie. We're going to have a look at the grid and as it stands right now and how things play out. But that final was it was a tight one.
Yeah, it was incredibly tight. I think Mitch put on a perfect performance there. You can see how much it meant to Team Jaguar as well. James Barkley was absolutely beaming. So that was great to see for them as a team. It's their first pole position of the season with Mitch. Really heartbreaking for Cassidy, though, you know, after his incident in free practice 2. His times were good, you know, up until that point, and then just missed out by 1 place in the duels. Also for Jake Hughes, that was kind of heartbreak there for him. I think he still had the fastest time with a 16.9 in the quarterfinals, which would have been enough to be on pole if it wasn't for the mistake on turn 11 sausage.
And that'll probably turn 11 sausage, yeah. We'll talk about that. Because he'll probably be feeling confident going into the race, so knowing what he can do in that McLaren. But John-Eric Verne as well, he was looking so comfortable. I mean, we talk about FP1, FP2, you know, top of the class, coming into the duels. He was looking really strong, just couldn't quite get it done. But again, we'll probably be happy with his position on the grid. Tucked in behind Mitch Evans.
Exactly, and it's so easy to sit here and fixate on who's first and who's second. In the reality, they kind of want to be fourth and fifth, so I don't think anyone's going to be too stressed about that. He summed it up perfectly in the interview just now, where he said, whoever's 15th can also be in your gearbox within one lap, so we can't really take too much notice of quali, although it's a massive confidence boost for the drivers. I think they're all going to be playing a game of chicken now, wanting to be half throttle on the straights and letting the other people take the drag from the air.
What's that like for a driver? Because essentially, you know, from my point of view, I'm in the lead, I want to just go. You know, I can see clean air. Granted, it might be a problem from an energy management point of view. But, you know, do you see a situation where Mitch is going to have to just drop back at some point to conserve that energy?
Yeah, and I think also this is where the experience of these drivers that have been in the championship for many years comes in. You know, as a rookie to come into Formula E and have to manage energy in this way is very unique to Formula E. I don't really think we see that in any other championship. So for them to actually have the experience of how to manage that themselves, also working with a team strategy, they're kind of having an advantage in that. But I think it's very much of when to go. That's the challenge that they're trying to find, when to launch, because you obviously don't want to be on the back foot. Another team launches and goes full power at the end of the race to try and obviously get on the podium. But if you're missing that window with yourself and your strategy, that can be very stressful as a driver.
It can be indeed, as you can hear the helicopters flying above us right now, always the case on grid. A man who finished in third in the duels was Pascal Wehrlein, and he's given his thoughts to Nicky Shields.
So currently with Pascal Wehrlein, our championship leader at the moment. Pascal, you are just so consistent in qualifying. You know, it's the 5th time you've been in the duels this season.
Yeah, it was a good qualifying. Actually, this morning I wasn't super happy. We were only in P19, but we changed a couple of things and that worked out. So, yeah, pretty happy. Nevertheless, you always feel like you could have gained those 600 somewhere to make it to the final. But, yeah, nevertheless, happy with the result. I think P3 for this kind of race is not a bad position to start.
Exactly. Thanks very much, Pascal Wehrlein.
Yeah, Pascal Wehrlein, David Coulthard has come to join myself and Katie here on the pit lane. He seems to always be there, Pascal Wehrlein. He's top of the championships as it stands right now, and he'll be very happy, I think, with where he sits on the grid, David.
Yeah, I think the overall pace has been good. He's confident. He was confident when he arrived here. Actually, we saw from the track walk. He's a very serious professional race driver, and that ultimately comes through in his delivery. So, good position.
Is there anything you saw out there in all the drivers that, whether it's a mistakes point of view, Katie mentioned, what did you call it again?
The sausage.
I've heard the sausage, I've heard the sleeping policeman, everyone keeps calling it all different things. The chicane that a lot of the drivers were going through, are these key points that are going to be problems for the drivers throughout the race as they bunch up?
They will, because everything we've seen so far, free practice, qualifying, it's about finding track space and getting comfortable with the car and the balance. Once you go racing and the elbows are out, you find yourself on a piece of track you've not been before. You suddenly get, you know, missighted to where your braking reference is. There will be incidents. I guarantee you of that, whether it's at the turn 2, 3 chicane, probably less so there because you've done most of the work into turn 1, but definitely down at 8, 9. And those sleeping policemen, as I like to call them, are definitely going to come into play as well in the race.
So knocking it ahead to the race, we're kind of like touching on it there. How do you kind of see it playing out, Katie?
Do you know what? I think it's impossible to say. A lot of the drivers touch on it when you ask them as well at the minute. I think it's just energy strategy and which team picks that up the best. I know Porsche are feeling very confident with their powertrain. They feel like they've got one of the most efficient energy powertrains on the grid. So I think in terms of their confidence going into that will be a big thing for them. But it's really impossible to rule anyone out, I think, at the minute because it's such a unique race. And we haven't really seen a race that's going to play out this way in this season yet.
Well, if I have to ask you both, and I'll start with you, DC, where would you like to be placed on the grid today?
I'd like to be in pole because you get the extra points.
I knew you'd say that.
Yeah. and also you just got the confidence of knowing, you know, you've kept it all together all the way through. You can then dictate where you want to run thereafter in the race. So, you know.
Go on, Katie. What about you? You thinking more
Well, I've got to
strategy?
say something different now. I can't go with pole as well. I was thinking maybe third or fourth. You can kind of, you're in with the pack, you're there, but you're keeping an eye on everything. I think you also want to stay out of the drama. That's another thing. We've seen when people try to launch and other teams aren't launching in the past, that's also a bit of a problem.
Can't wait, can't wait. Well, it's all coming up. We've got race 6 of the Formula E season coming to you in a couple of hours' time here on the Adriatic coast of Italy. We'll see you soon.